shall we now begin to deal with the issues of the voters register as the NPP has put out and see what we can do about that. Now, let's hear Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who is the vice presidential candidate of the NPP, speak about why he thinks that the voters register must be replaced. He's been all around within the villages, going about meeting with people there, and suddenly he shows up in Accra and tells us that we must get the voters register replaced. Let's hear him.
This is a sample of the voters register in Togo, right? So we obtained the Togo voters register to begin the investigations. So this is a sample with all the details. We used what we call facial biometric recognition technology. So basically you are trying to look at two people. You search the registers of both Ghana and Togo, and then the program will look at characteristics, facial recognition characteristics, look at the distances between the eyes, ears, and so on, the mean, standard deviation, mode, kurtosis, standard variance, and all of it. And then so you take this to have a sense, because you are trying to do biometric facial recognition technology. When we began the search, it was quite amazing what we began to find.
Okay, so Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia there, and he addressed the press. Let's hear Johnson Asiedu Nketia, General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress. The NDC also held a press conference to react to some of the claims that were made by the NPP. Let's hear him.
The claim by the NPP that persons from Togo and Cote d'Ivoire have had their names on the electoral register is not only fraudulent, but also constitute a gratuitous attack on the people of the Volta and Brong-Ahafo regions. As far as we are concerned, this claim is a continuation of the NPP's long-standing affinity to tribal politics, through which they associate people from certain ethnic and tribal extractions with wrongdoing and heap unsavory comments on them. This is unfortunate, ladies and gentlemen. You know the regions that border Togo. You have Volta region, you have Northern region, you have Upper East region. So why are you settling on the indigents of Volta region? They should come and explain to us.
Johnson Asiedu Nketia is the General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress. I've been reminded that I need to read this text message and get it out of the way so that we move on to what we are doing now. And this one says that, how much will it cost the nation to get a decent bus and a qualified driver for the presidential press corps? This accident could have been avoided. It's coming from SK in Ho. The doctors have called off their strike because they want to have their salaries paid. Also, you didn't identify yourself. Mba from Bolga is asking, why is there no NDC representation on the show today? Okay, the simple explanation to that is that they have been unavailable. The class of NDC representations that we sought have been unavailable. Also, I sympathize with the family of Nyama. It's sad how journalists in Ghana can fight for everybody, but they cannot fight for better conditions of service for themselves. That is not good enough. The presidential convoy always overspeeds, and the police and journalists look on unconcerned. This is a wake-up call. May the soul of the deceased rest in peace. From OT. The doctors are coming back to work because we are entering the final week of the month and they want their salaries back. Well, they say they can go, and this comes from T-Smart, West Legon. They say that, look, they have lived without their salaries for a whole year before, or even more than that, so they didn't really need that. Thank you for those messages. Now, I've also got on the phone lines to help us with this particular discussion. I've got, as I announced earlier, Mr. Justice George Togo. He's a research and data analyst. Ben Efson, who is also joining us on the phone lines to help us deal with the electoral roll and the way the NPP is claiming has been, compromised and needs to be replaced. Is that really the case? Thank you very much, gentlemen. If you can hear me on the phone lines, let's have your responses to my welcoming so that we move on.
Okay. Good morning, Samson, and good morning to your guests and also to your viewers and listeners.
Great. So, Justice, I'm going to come to you right after I speak to Gabi Asare to make the case once again for the NPP. And Justice deals a lot with the figures as far as the electoral register in this country is concerned. He's got a very fantastic way of analyzing the figures and, demystifying the stuff in there. You will hear him shortly. Gabi, once again, for the purposes of my viewers and listeners, what is the NPP's claim, grounds for a new register?
Let me just sum it up. And I'm sure you've heard of the idea. There's an institution, International IDEA. Okay, they deal with elections. There's a think tank that deals with elections, and they have figures here, and the figures are taken from the UN, and the UN took those figures from census and registers across the world. Okay, if you go to their website, you will find it, and I'll give you the link after. Now, this is Ghana. Let's look at Ghana. Just these figures. For 2012, they give you the voter turnout. It's 80.15%. They give you the total vote, 11,246,982. They give you the registration, i.e. the number of Ghanaians that are supposed to have been on the register, voters register. It's 14,031,693. And they give you what they call the voter turnout as a percentage of the voting age population, which is 82.20%. Now they give you something else. Now that something else comes out of the census. Now, if you go through all the registers, like the current ones from across the world. Now let's look at Ghana's. The voting age population per Ghana's own statistics is 682,083. Now, what is interesting about it? What is interesting about it is that according to our own statistics, the number of Ghanaians at voting age is lower than the number of Ghanaians on our register. The references are there. I mean, International IDEA. Go on their website. Now, if you want me to go further, but then when you look at what they've done is they've given you the parliamentary figures and the presidential figures, and you notice that the parliamentary figures are closer to the voting age of Ghana in terms of the parliamentary register. They're not supposed to be a parliamentary register. But of course, if you register some Ghanaians abroad, they can only vote for presidential elections because they don't have an address in Ghana. Okay? So if you isolate that, then there shouldn't be any difference, especially when you tell us less than, what, is it 2,000 or 705 Ghanaians or 706 Ghanaians are supposed to have registered abroad. there shouldn't be the difference between the parliamentary register and the presidential register should be not more than the number of Ghanaians that are supposed to have registered only for the presidential election. Okay? But you see that the parliamentary register is closer, almost like 100%, to the voting age population of Ghana. So how can you have a situation where if you look at the voting age population, it is lower than the number of people on your register as a country? So I think that's how I want to sum it up. And the thing is, when you look at Togo, okay, their recent register and the numbers,
the 2015 register,
absolutely, okay, it is actually the only register where, if you look at the recent Togo register, it is compared to the previous register, and this is after they did the cleaning up and the rest of it. The voting age population is actually 53.22%, and the percentage of the population on the register is 46.47%, as compared to 2010, where the voting age was 51.22%, and the population captured on the register was 52.10%. So they took steps, of course, supported by our own president, to correct the anomaly. So I think if it must
be stated, though, that when the president supported the Togolese to clean up their register, he did not say that they need to change the register.
But I'm saying that I think the fundamental thing was that they saw that there were problems with the register, and the register was cleaned.
Right. The opposition agrees. The party in government agrees with you that there are problems with the register, but we don't think the way to deal with it is by a new one.
But the problems in Ghana are different to a point from the problems. If you compare, there's a difference between the problems in Ghana and the problems in Togo. And let me also say,
this is the NDC's response to that particular claim that you make, and which you use, and you look at African countries, and the question of the voter population as a percentage of the national population, and saying that the register ought not be, over 50%, so to speak. And you look at across Africa, and they have 47%, elsewhere 43, or less than 50. The NDC says the MPP claimed. Your claim that the voter population of 14 million indicates a bloated register because the 2010 population and housing census conducted by the Ghana Statistical Service pegged the country's population at 25 million, out of which 50% or 12.5 million were 18 years and above. It says this argument is deeply flawed because the use of the 2010 population of 25 million as basis for determining what percentage of that population should be on the register ignores population growth between 2010 and 2012. The rate of growth of our population is estimated at 2.5% per annum. To estimate Ghana's population as of 2012 and proceed to determine if a 14 million voter population is accurate, there is the need to adjust the 2010 figures by 2.5% to know the population for 2011 and proceed to adjust that by 2.5% to arrive at the population of Ghana as of 2012. It is after this that one can make a valid and sensible comparison between the voter population as of 2012 and the national population in that same year. To compare the voter population of 2012 to the national population as of 2010 assumes that our population has been static since the last census was conducted, and that there has not been movement in the stages as captured and so on and so forth. This sounds a credible, defense. That's what Esedun Ketia says will do to your statistic. It will make your statistics evaporate under scrutiny.
After all the Bofo Bebre, I agree with Asare Nketia, but it's not a credible defense. It's a logical statement. And when you take your time to look at the presentation by Dr. Bawumia, this is here. What he did was, he put the figures there in terms of what the census figures said. He used that as a basis, okay? If you look at the census figures, it means it was the voter register in 2012 represented 56.20%. And then the next PowerPoint that he brought out, this was it. He says the 2012 voters register is incredibly flawed. And he said registered voters as a percentage of the population adjusted for population growth. Somehow, Asare Nketia chose not to see that. And what does it say? It says 54.06%. So Dr. Bawumia adjusted the figures. And even in adjusting the figures, he made the point that yet when you still compare the adjusted figures to the rest of the continent, nowhere is it over 50%. Apart from Ghana. So, and when you actually, and you know, even Dr. Bawumia was generous, because we had a census September. I think that the mark date was 17th September 2010. We had the registration from March to, I believe, 5th of May, okay, for 40 days. Now, the register, estimated register, population growth, that Dr. Bawumia uses here is the end of 2012. You get me? It's the end of 2012, whilst the registration took place from the first quarter of 2012. Yet he did not even use the end of 2011 estimated population, but the end of 2012. So in a sense, if you adjust it further, okay, and take into account the fact that it happened in the first quarter to the second quarter, you are looking at over 55% of the population. And I find it strange that Asare Nketia and his NDC are prepared in 2000, every time we make an argument about the register, whether or not it's true, because you assume that it's the same formula that is used for census that has been used over the years, if not improved, okay? We juxtapose the voter population to the census and then come to some conclusion whether or not the register is bloated. Okay, so we did that in 2008. It came to a conclusion that it was bloated. Yet when you go to apply biometric technology, you still end up with a bloated register because there's a disconnect between your voter age population and your registered voters.
Okay, thank you very much. You hold it there, and I'll get Justice and then Benefson, who are on the line, to interrogate particularly the evidence that you put out about 70,000 similar names which were found in the Togolese voters register and that of Ghana's as well. And then we'll come back to the studio and look at the hear what Kwaku and also what Kofi Siao has to say. The PPP is one of the parties, minority parties, that supports a new register, the need for a new register. Now, Justice, particularly reference, and Benefson, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Samson. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you. Now, Justice, particularly referencing the Dr. Bawumia's analysis of the 70,000, plus people that are supposed to, have their names in Ghana's register and that of Togo, and that is only 10% of the analysis that the NPP has done so far in its investigations in this process. What is your take? What is your analysis of that situation?
Yeah, thank you very much, Samson, and good morning to your listeners and your viewers. Actually, before I go to there are 76,000 people whose names have appeared in both the Ghanaian and the Togo register, let me address what Gabi just said. Our population grows at a certain rate, and that we all know of. But if we want to be comparing a voter population to the national population, including everybody, we might be doing something wrong. Because that growth in population is about newborns. And those newborns, it will take, after 18 years, before they become voters, isn't it? So after 18 years before they become voters,
Hello, Justice.
Something, can you hear me?
Yes, you're on. You're on.
Okay. If we should take, for instance, 2012, if we should take new voters, first-time voters, for instance, by 2012, somebody born between 1992 and 1996, thereabout, should be eligible to vote between, or should have crossed the 18 years mark between 2008 and 2012. So let's go back and see the growth rate of our population between 1992 and 1996. You understand? If you go back, our population grew from 15.47 million to 17.17 million. And that is a change of 1.7 million. And that 1.7 million represents 11% in between 1992 and 1996. So somebody is born within that period. After 18 years, between 2008 and 2012, that person should be eligible to vote. Now let's look at how much our voters register nationally has grown between 2008 and 2012. That is 12.5% growth. Compare that to 11% growth in our population between 18 and 20 years ago. That is 11%. And the growth in our voter population between 2008 and 2012. That gives us 11% against 12.5%, a deviation of 1.51%. And if we are looking at a margin of error of plus or minus 2.5%, I think that is within the margin.
Interesting. Now, let's move on to the next point about the 70,000 plus, which is only 10% of the analysis that Dr. Barima has done about, similar names in the Ghanaian register and also in the Togolese register.
Yes, actually, let me say that the MPP has a legitimate case in calling for a credible and valid voters register. But the 76,000
Hello, Justice.
Yes, something, can you hear me?
Start the point again.
Okay, I'm saying that the over 76,000 people the MPP is talking of, that means all those people are only residing along the voter border with Togo. And if you should take that figure, the question is, if you look at the pictures they've shown to all of us, the question is, can you see somebody, can you just look at somebody's face and see if that person is a Ghanaian or a non-Ghanaian? I think there are three scenarios that arise here. On that 76,000 people's list, there will be 100% Ghanaians, and I'm sure there will be 100% Togolese, as well as those who are 50-50, whose parents or one of their parents come from Ghana and the other one comes from Togo. So the MPP should be telling us, if we should all take that 76,000 case, they should be telling us on that list, are they telling us that they are all 100% Togolese who came to register in Ghana? And I don't think so. And there is no evidence to prove it too.
Hold on there for me. Belemson, thank you also for joining us. Now, what do you say about the questioning of the names of foreigners on the voters register? The NDC accuses the NPP of a selective analysis.
Yes, thank you very much. First, a good morning to your panelists too. I think that to get the voter turnout in elections, you find now the percentage of those who turn out to vote vis-a-vis those who had registered, not the, I think, registrable population, as Gabi said. Now, Gabi, the quote you did from Asedun Ketia concerning the percentage of registrable population, as at the 2010 elections, it had moved from 51 point something percent in 2000 census to 55.28 in 2010.
Not true.
Second.
Not true. Not true.
Hello, Ben, are you on? No, hello, Ben, are you there?
I'm here.
Right, so proceed. But yes. I need to state, though, that in the statement, when Johnson Asiedu Nketia put the 2010 census figure at 25 million, he seems to have gotten it wrong, because it must be 22 million, according to the Statistical Service.
No, well, 2010, it was 25 million, 2010. And if you do the 2.5% growth rate, it gives you estimated population of 2012 as at 25.97 million, almost 26 million.
Okay.
Now, to get 55.28% of that gives you 14.37.
Okay.
Now, I agree that if it's 14.37 million of the registrables at 22, I agree that it's relatively high to register about 98% of the registrable population, that is 18%. Concerning the Togolese register, I think that I'll wait for the Electoral Commission to clear that one, because they will have to consult their colleagues in Togo to find out, one, if that is the true example of voters register from Togo and so on. So I'll leave that one.
Okay.
Now, concerning the selective analysis, I said, if you look at when Dr. Barima gave his presentation, there was a chart. We talked about table 4. We talked about increase, decrease in voters registered between 2008 and 2012. Now, something concerning elections, you use percentages alone, you may be a bit deceived. From the chart that Dr. Barima gave, look at K2 South. He gives, that is a flower area. He gives, that is the K2 South district.
Mm-hmm.
He gives the percentage as 28.9%. In actual terms, the figure is 28,376. He then comes to Greater Accra, Katamanso, 57.7%. The actual difference in numbers is 29,059. Coincidentally, K2 South and Katamanso are NDC strongholds. But you forgot, or did you see, Tomi Kwabenya, that is an MPP stronghold. Ajwasafo won by a margin of 28,000. That is going to take considerable length of time when they should ever think of winning that constituency. The difference is 31.52%. But in terms of percentage, it will be 25%. So you may compare Katamanso's 29,000, which gives you 57.7%. Dr. Barima did not, the team did not see that one. He comes down, he talks about Swaman. Swaman is 23.2% increase. That is 3,938, less than 4,000. We have Nkoko, which is 7,145. We have Oforikrom, which is 9,000 plus. Concerning the NHIA registration, there is reference made, something to that in 2013 alone, the registration, the two border regions of Volta and Brunhave were accounted for a third. The chart that Dr. Barima kindly provided, if you look at example between 2010 and 2011, the increases over these 2 years, it makes it a bit interesting. If you look at the increase, Brunhave, yes, tops with 136,400, a difference between the 2 years. Second is Greater Accra, 78,924. Third is Volta, 60,148. Then Eastern, 47,000. Here, I think that Greater Accra is not a border region. So that, I think, gave me the impression that perhaps maybe in the election petition, you can decide to pick up arguments and details which will support your case. But these were things that I found out interestingly were not mentioned or they did not come on board.
So you agree with Johnson Asiedu Nketia when he says that the analysis of the figures was selective?
Well, I mean, to your point, he hasn't brought his point, but this is what I found out. You know, but this is what I found out. Concerning the voters registered, they were selective to suit their argument.
But is it also not important to note that Dr. Barima states clearly that they have just begun the process and that they just wanted to show an example to the EC ahead of time. So they are not told later that it's too late to bring up any issues for consideration as regarding a new register. So they decided to use that of the voter rigging and the Brong Ahafo, what they have found, as evidence. And that's just 10% of the analysis of the registers for Ghana and Togo.
Frankly, I'm not talking about those Ghanaians who voted, Togolese who voted in Togo and voted in Ghana. That's for the EC to answer. I'm talking about the chart he brought.
Right.
If you, for example, you put in a program to give you increases or decreases, it will give you, I mean, you let's say they left Aflawo, which was a border town, to come to get Accra. Okay. Katamanso is 29,059. Definitely, the program should pick up the Mukam, who is 31,000.
Okay.
If you talk about Swaman, Western region, which is less than 4,000, the program should be able to pick up Nkoko 7,000, Swami 7, Oforokom 9,000. So I'm saying that, I mean, yes, it may be so that maybe majority of NDC strongholds would have had greater increases, but to look through and you don't see any MPP stronghold which has registered that, you know, on my part, I think makes them be selective. Hello, Sam.
Yes, Justice, are you back?
Yes.
Okay.
I would like to make a contribution to that respect. You know, what Beneficent is talking about is right. Because when you know, the MPP in Dr. Baumier's report, he gave a threshold that any increase, any jump in voter registration between 2 years, like 2 election years, that is between 2008 and 2012, any jump more than 25% is abnormally high, in quote, abnormally high. So what I did was to pick all the 275 constituencies and then compute the difference between the voter population between 2008 and 2012. And when you look at the figures by themselves, well, you will see them. But if you should plot them on the map of Ghana, which I have done, and anybody can go online and view it, you see a certain trend developing. You notice that it will not be necessary for the MPP to continue their border investigations anymore, because the point is that if in all the borders, around all the borders, there are only 4 constituencies where their voter population jumped more than 25% between 2008 and 2012. And those 4, one is Kedu South, the other is, let me see, Yankwanta North, and then Uziga, as well as Bole Baboy. Those are the 4 border constituencies where their voter population increased more than 25% between the 2 elections. That is not the end of the story. If you look on the map of Ghana as a whole, when the data is plotted, you notice that in total there are 23 constituencies out of the 275 constituencies where the voter population jumped more than 25% between the 2 elections. And the rest of them are not border constituencies. They are inland constituencies. That means 19 out of the 23 are inland constituencies. Now, when you see it, take for instance, Katamanso. In Greater Accra region, we have Katamanso, Ningo Pampram, and then Shai Osudoku to the eastern part of the region, including Adenta. And that tells you something. If you go to the Ashanti region as well, you will see Echima, Kwanoma, Efuja, Kwabre, and Kwabre South, and Kwabre East. You see that these constituencies are around the 2 metropolis. They are around the 2 metropolis, the Greater Accra and then Kumasi, or Accra Metropolis and Kumasi. That tells you that there's some kind of movement of people from other parts of the country to these places, and probably they cannot afford the cost of living within the city centers. So they find ways of living outside the cities and going to work at the city center instead.
Okay.
And that may have
so once again, you are saying that for the border constituencies where you had increases of about or over 25%, which is supposed to be abnormal between the two elections, you had only 4 constituencies within the border areas. That is Ketu South, Nkwanta North, Pusiga, and Boli Bamboi, right?
That is right.
Right. Then you are saying that you have those constituencies that are not border constituencies. And how many of them?
There are 19 of them in total.
19 of them?
Yes.
Recorded this abnormal 25%?
Yes, more than 25%.
More than 25% between the two elections?
Between the 2 elections.
Okay, so on the basis of that, you say that the NPP should not continue the investigation with the border constituencies because it's flawed?
Yes.
Okay. You hold on briefly for me. Let me hear Gabi very quickly on the 2. You have heard Berefsin on the analysis with the census figures. Yeah. You've heard also Justice with this very, graphic example.
I think it's what I call the Fifi-Kwete argument.
The Fifi-Kwete argument.
Yes, which is that, oh yes, of course, okay, the figures are high in Ketu South, but look elsewhere too. And I think once you do that, then you are adding to what is wrong or maybe wrong with the register. Because really, okay, what is the argument being made here? It's being made that in Accra itself, the figures may not have changed, but just a little outside of Accra. But we are in Accra. We know where some movements are also, Kaswa and the rest of it. But I'm saying that when you look at it, it tells you that there are abnormalities within the voter register and the numbers.
No, but he gives you these specific examples to say that you are using the border towns or the border constituencies. And he's saying that out of all the border constituencies, where you have abnormal figures, only 4 of them. But when you come inside the constituencies that are not bounded by any borders whatsoever, you have as many as 19 that are recording this abnormal figure. So the project has failed from the start.
No, but that is actually assuming that there's only bloated register within constituencies by the border. But I don't think that's the NPP argument.
Okay.
What the NPP is saying that the register is bloated, but they've done something extra which Ghanaians were not aware of. They've gone as far as to show you the register of a different country and compare it to Ghana, and then you can see that there are a lot of Ghanaians, even in terms of the constituencies NPP show, there were more than the 4.
Okay.
Where they found people who have registered in both Togo and Ghana. So I think really all these arguments, as far as I'm concerned, add to the point that there's something flawed about the register. Because look, let me just
ask you this question.
Which is?
He gives the point about the analysis with the 70,000 plus, 76,000 or so plus persons whose names have been found in Ghana's register and Togo's register. And he says that you need to go beyond simply saying these are people who are in Ghana and in Togo as well. Because there could be the situation that you have 100% Ghanaians, 100% Togolese, and 50%, 50-50 within that situation again.
So, I mean, the wonderful thing about the Togolese register is that it shows you not just the name of the person, but the person's father and mother. They are there. That's what's actually wonderful about Togolese register. So those who may know the nuances and differences between ever Ghanaians and Togolese, that they can find that out. But I think really, you see, the MPP has showed you something that perhaps we never spoke about, which is that there are people on our register and people in Togolese register. Beyond that also, when you look at a special registration that took place in 2011, and let's not see these two in isolation, because by 2012, we added National Health Insurance Card to...
Okay, we'll move on to that argument. Let me let my guest on the phone go, and then we can continue right here.
But let me just...
And Kweku wants to make an intervention quickly. So I want to quickly, Benefson, if you're still there on the line for us, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Good. Ben, what do you make of Justice's analysis in respect of the border town constituencies and those that are even within, that are scoring higher than the abnormal numbers?
I agree with Justice. You see, we can separate constituencies which have recorded abnormal increases in vote.
Hello, Ben. Have I lost Ben on the line?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, you were saying you can separate constituencies which have these abnormal numbers at the border areas from...
Yeah, you can separate constituencies in general,
okay,
which recorded abnormal high voter increases between 2000 and 2012 from the NDC's allegation of Togolese voters also being on our register. These are two separate arguments.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that you can make an argument for increased voter population between 2000 and 2012 without saying their border, as Justice proved.
Okay.
And I'm saying that if, for example, the chart before that Dr. Barima presented, if you take away K2 South, which they presented, and you come to even get Accra, Katamanso of 29,000, I'm saying that the program that makes you see the 29,000 should also make you see the Benya 31,000 increase.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And I'm saying that concerning that Togolese and Ghanaian register is, I leave it, I can make it whether I believe it or not.
Right.
EC collaborates with his Togolese counterpart.
Okay, that's fair, but a straight point now. All of these, analysis do seem to point to something wrong with the register, don't they?
I agree there's something wrong with the register, but something opening the register again. For example, all the political parties encourage minors to vote. So if from the Barima at one point said it may be bloated, I think it's quite tight to register 98% of those above 18 years.
Okay.
It's quite high. You open the register again, all those bodies and individuals and political parties who make minors register will still be like-minded to do it. Perhaps I will opt for cleaning up the register than open it afresh, where we may have increased registration of minors.
All right. That's a point she's already made last week. Quickly.
Hey, you mentioned 98% as being the figure for registrable Ghanaians. Is that figure from the total population? Because total population, mind you, captures also non-Ghanaians. So I just want to know where you got a 98% from.
The 98% register was, if you take 55.28%,
which is
of the 25.97 million population as at 2012, it gets you a little over 14 million.
I understand that, but I'm saying
that
the 98%.
I said the 98% is registrable.
No, but
because first you have to prove. I mean, I'm not assuming that the MPP was wrong, and I cannot also assume that they are right.
Okay.
So until there's confirmation or denial by the electoral body.
Everybody on the census figures are what they are all Ghanaians.
Okay.
Is that what you're saying?
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much for your time. Let me finish with Justice now. Now, Justice, I have a message from one Kofi Lewis, and he's saying, Kofi Lewis Boeki, he says that, Samson, I'm from Doma Badukrum, a border between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, and I say without fear that we vote in both countries. Esiedun Ketia knows better if he will face the facts. And Kofi is sending us this from Belgium. You are not saying you don't recognize this fact.
No, I'm not saying so. What I'm saying is that there are people over in the border communities who probably because of economic activity cross the border anytime. So we should be able to differentiate between who is 100% Ghanaian and who is qualified to vote in Ghana. In that case, if you are a Togolese, it doesn't matter whether you are residing around the border or you are residing somewhere in the middle of Ghana. Once you are not a Ghanaian in any way, you are not supposed to vote in Ghana.
Right.
And in this particular case, let me put it this way. You know, I was saying that the MPP has a legitimate case. Yes, there's something wrong with our register, but the way forward is not to do another new voters register, because I believe in 2004 there was a complaint of bloated register. We did registration, a new registration.
Okay, I seem to have lost Justice there. Justice, are you still there? I'm just ending. I want him to.
Yes.
Hello, Justice.
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay, you know, the question about whether or not what should be the method to use in cleaning up the register, I'm sure we'll get to deal with that. Johnson Nketia has other suggestions about that, using the law without changing the register. So thank you very much, Justice, for your time. And Justice, earlier when he was speaking, he was inviting people to visit this page, Ghana Elections File. Ghana Elections File. When you go, he's done some work there that you would see for yourself how it goes. But take this question from Gabi.
Per the census, 2010 census, there were 2 million foreigners in Ghana out of the 24 point something that were captured.
I'm sure he's gone off.
Is he there?
Okay, I've lost him. I've lost him. Okay, thank you very much. I'll hear from Kweku, and then we'll take a quick break, return to continue from Kweku and Siam. Yes, Kweku.
Well, I am in a hurry almost to hear from the EC relative to their study of the package that has been given to them.
They are still studying.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I just want that to end for us to have an informed basis to deal with some of these issues that are arising. But serious issues have already come up. I found it quite intriguing, the suggestion that the border area investigations must stop. See, if it turns out to be true, and the if is important here, that those voters or registrants, or the registration rather, was not done in a live environment, that is at the polling station as it's done traditionally, conventionally, and that these pictures, this whole thing was scanned and entered into our system. That's a very serious matter. Whether it is 1 or it is 2 or it is 70,000 plus, that electronic infiltration, that virus, if indeed it turns out to be so, will put the integrity of the whole biometric registration system into doubt.
That is a serious criminal claim. How do we get to authenticate it positively?
Technology is available.
Right.
Technology, I'm not an expert when it comes to that area crime, terribly.
So what is your invitation to the EC particularly? Barima has done his part. The NPP
but that's why I keep on emphasizing the EC, not this whole thing. The parties are important, they are stakeholders, civil society important, stakeholders. We are all discussing these issues after the MPP held a press conference after delivering the thing to the EC.
Right.
So they opened the space for public to talk some. All that's okay, we can live with it, we can absorb it, but focus on the issues they've raised, many of them. But what alarmed me most was this particular aspect.
That's right.
That whether it is 1, 2, 10, or 20,000, that has a certain value. Critical.
It was a temporary booth. Polling station. A temporary booth.
Yeah, but how?
I'm just saying.
Yes.
And again, Gabi, it's not difficult to find which EC officials were responsible for those areas.
Absolutely.
So it is not difficult to isolate the perpetrators if indeed this is what's happening.
You're talking punishment, sanctions, yes. But the fact that the system itself
ICT
got
altogether
compromised is serious.
Right.
We can then locate the perpetrators and sanction them because the law will allow that.
Right.
But for us, because when we arrived at biometric registration, we knew we had improved the system, looking at the evolution of the reforms that we had done over the years.
Except that they cannot catch minors.
Yes, but it was an improvement. But it was an improvement. Let me be honest with you. It's an improvement on the earlier ones. But if this improved, advanced one can be subjected to this kind of infiltration,
criminal infiltration,
then we have to wake up and then look beyond this 76 one and find out what else has happened to our ICT at the EC. Who are in charge of it? There are even external connections to our the EC's IT department. There's some foreign elements. It's a foreign company that has something to do with it, not just the contractor, but other technical support services. I'm sure you know. We have to look at all these things. So for me, that's where my focus is.
Okay.
I'm being honest with you.
So
beyond that, I wonder, this ethnocentric element.
Okay, let me take a break. We'll return to deal with that, about the selectivity of the figures and the analysis going forward, and the NDC's claim that obviously this is the NPP's, they are known for something like this, and that intentionally they just want to discredit the people of the Volta region in the manner they have sought to go about the process. Before I take the break, I understand Justice is back. Your question briefly to him, and then we'll move on.
Oh, he's back?
Yes.
Really? I think my question was also, in all his analysis, did he take into consideration the census figures that 2 million of those captured were non-Ghanaians?
Justice.
Yeah, hello, Thompson. I can hardly hear Gabi, so if you can repeat the question for me.
Okay, listen carefully. Gabi, put the question again.
Yes, I'm asking, did you take into consideration the fact that the census figures said there were 2 million registered by the census who were non-Ghanaians?
Right, you heard that?
No, not really.
Okay. The census figures, he says, indicates that there were 2 million. There were 2 million persons registered who were non-Ghanaians. Did you take that into account?
No, I didn't.
That's fine. That's okay. That's fine.
Thank you very much. Sounds like a cross-examination knockout you are doing. What is this?
Oh.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, because in court, when you get such answers, you don't proceed and then you deal with it in your address. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is your most authoritative news analysis show, and I'll have some messages to share with you, and then we'll continue and also ask what is the consequence of almost an entire population community being said to have dual citizenship. How exactly is that possible, and how do we make sure that if we cannot say that they actually are dual citizens, then how do we get those who ought not be voting in Ghana out of the system so that they do not vote? And we must also place on record that it does appear that by the time the NDC did its press conference, either it ignored or was unaware of the names that came along with the pictures that were sort of placed at our disposal to see as far as Baumia's analysis was concerned. One of the charges was that those were only pictures without names. That's what you find in the press statement. But I'm seeing almost the entire picture here, and you see all the names equally also shown. Now, every day we make countless decisions, but what is it that is our major concern? Is it to send and receive money safely, or to enjoy convenient banking? Well, you can heave a sigh of relief now, because at Bank of Africa, Ghana, you can access swift money transfers via Western Union, MoneyGram, and Worry. Bank on the go with their electronic banking product B-Web and B-Mobile, and also pay your fees and utility bills. Now, that's value for your time. Visit any Bank of Africa branch nationwide for more information. Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. And do you desperately need a contact of that hotel or fast food joint? Need to know the nearest hospital or bank? The doctors are back. Or you do want to do business. You want your business to reach millions of potential customers. All you got to do is dial *1188# or call that number and get all the contacts you need from MTN 1188 directory service. You can also download the 1188 directory service app on the MTN and Google Play stores today. Get real-time information on service providers or register your business and get found by millions of customers. Step into the new world with MTN 1188 directory service today. MTN Business, welcome to the new world. Star Assurance is 30 years, and through all those years, all they have been up to is to deliver solid insurance that puts endless smiles on the faces of their customers. When you walk in for a motor or travel policy, what Star Assurance does more is to brighten up your world through all your journeys. And when customers walk in for homeowners, contractors, all risk, fire and allied perils insurance policy, what Star Assurance does more is to make them feel like such dangers don't exist in the world at all. Insure with Star Assurance today and be part of the smiling family. Star Assurance, creating smiles since 1985. Let's go, let's celebrate 30 years of solid partnership. You can check them out at starassurance.com or visit any of their offices nationwide. You can call them also 030-224-0632 and enjoy solid insurance all round. Sasso spray kills mosquitoes, cockroaches, houseflies, ants, and other crawling flying insects. Sasso mosquito coil is smokeless. Sasso spray leaves a sweet lemon fragrance in your room till the next day. Sasso mosquito coil and spray, they are free from catarrh, headaches, and chest infections. So insist on Sasso spray or their mosquito coil whenever you visit a shop to buy insecticide. Sasso is fresh and it's powerful. Now, some of your messages. Ata Imoro in Wellensi says, why would a petition submitted to the EC call for immediate reaction from NDC? A new improved register will not disadvantage any party, but will only advance our democratic credentials. Okay, so that's a suspicion there.
Yeah.
Washington in Wassa Wantram says a new and credible register is a non-negotiable option. Ghana's fate cannot be decided upon by persons who have no stake in the affairs of the country. A Ghanaian president must be elected by bona fide Ghanaians only. Well, you may have picked this one from Yao Safomafo. He says that we should not allow that to happen. No president must be elected on this present register. Well, question coming up is, if we don't get a new one and the NPP contests on this, will it contest on this? And if it does, and it does win, will it accept or it will not accept? Paul Adokisi in Etibia Kwewu says, most Ghanaians are asking for a new voters register. Why is the NDC alone rejecting the idea? What do they stand to lose when we acquire a new voters register? A very good question there. Simon in Wale says, it is important Ghana goes into the 2016 general election with a register which enjoys the confidence of all parties. Ghana needs a new and credible register. You also speaking like Nana Akufo-Addo did at the press conference. Bonti Benjamin in Achimabwakwa says, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia chose his words carefully by stating that the names and details of persons or the facial technology identified can be found in the voter register in both Ghana and Togo. He didn't malign the good people of the voter region, Western and Brong-Ahafo region, as the NDC want us to believe. Kofi Atta in Cambridge says, the fact of the matter is that the voters register is more credible and must be clean to get rid of minors and also those who used NHIS cards to register. That's a difficult one. Sedun Ketia tells you that those who use the NHIS card to gain access to register the last time now have a voter's ID. And if they are going to register, they will use the voter's ID or they may use some
Why
other
is it behaving as
process.
if they have to? I mean, but they can sit
So,
there and agree that
so
they-
saying that by using a new voters register, by going for a new voters register, you can get rid of these people, it's flawed.
It's a very malarious
I agree with that argument, though.
Eh?
Now, let's move on.
It's a very malaria argument.
Mohammed Montala from Nimas in Kumasi says that the attempt by Esiedun Ketia to incite the people of the voter region against NPP is very unfortunate. No one has said Voltarians are not Ghanaians. Far from that, what the NPP is saying is simple, that among other several issues surrounding the voters register, Togolese have been found to have infiltrated our electoral register, and that debases the integrity of the register. Hence, the call for a new register. Ibrahim Kopa says the NDC is always jittery when a new voters register is proposed. Is it not safe to conclude that the voter register was compiled through a conspiracy in order to put the NDC ahead electorally? Okay, interesting questions coming, all directed, majority directed at the NDC, why it is behaving as though it stands to lose anything if a new register was compiled, and whether it was the spokesperson or the PR for the Electoral Commission, which the NPP has directed its concerns. Now, I want Kweku to deal with the issue of the selectivity on the manner in which Barima went with the process as alleged by the NDC, and then, come to you on that issue. Kweku, like those who are sending the text messages, they say that that claim is unfair.
Did Barima not mention other constituencies outside of the voter region?
He mentioned Brongahafu.
In terms of border things, he
okay.
mentioned Brongahafu region, the voter region, and I think he talked about Burkina Faso, so you can anticipate the other northern region or upper east and west.
Right.
And then in terms of the increases in certain constituencies, there's a list of about 15 increases and decreases. He mentioned about 15 constituencies, some in the western region, some in the Brongahafu region, and the rest. So straight away.
Okay, if you don't mind, let me say exactly what he, let me read exactly what he had to say.
Sure.
It says that the claim by the NPP that persons from Togo and Cote d'Ivoire are on the Ghanaian electoral register is not only fraudulent, but also constitute a gratuitous attack on the people of the Volta and Brongahafu regions. As far as we are concerned, this claim is a continuation of the NPP's long-standing affinity for tribal politics, through which they associate people from certain ethnic and tribal extraction with wrongdoing and heap unsavory comments on them. We strongly dispute the authenticity of the so-called Togolese register, which the NPP base its porous arguments on. They have a track record of concocting lies and fabricating evidence like they did at the Supreme Court to discredit the polls.
He's entitled to challenge or dispute the authenticity of the Togolese register because he hasn't seen it. I think the EC will have to go further than what has been presented to them and do some collaborative effort with the Togolese. What I have seen appears authentic, but I'm not an authority. But I think, as you indicated earlier, people are relying only on what was put out in the media.
Right.
And on that basis, I think it's a hasty judgment that Esiedun Ketia is making. But the ethnocentric area, that place, it worries me. Look, it's marks of a certain deep-seated intellectual impotence. Okay?
All right, Kokobakwe is back. Deep-seated intellectual impotence.
Yes. Tailored to inflame ethnic passions with the potential to destabilize this country, undermine national cohesion. It's a sign of weakness. They seek refuge in inflaming ethnic passions. It's a sign of weakness. It's impotence, mind-wise. No need, they don't create the conditions for rational intellectual analysis of a phenomenon. Straight away, play the ethnic card or the religious card. And then nobody thinks. It's only emotions that drive the discussion. This is dangerous for Ghana. And we ought to stop See, what is the basis for making the claim? When in 2008, the good old Professor Mills, may he rest in peace, was a great friend of mine, a senior friend, targeted 13 constituencies located in Asante region and claimed that there was a bloating of the register there. Was he talking anti-Asante? He raised an issue, and the issue was interrogated eventually by a EC committee. It turned out to be false. Asiedun Ketia was part of those who made a case. They asked questions. Some of the questions, indeed, Barima is asking today. Okay, led by the Ghana Palava, their mouthpiece. They asked, and let me read a little bit for you. It says the registered voters in these 13 Asante region constituencies have risen by 618,000 plus voters, realizing that in the 2004, the MPP had about 78% of the votes in the Asante region. This overbloating of the Asante region registered voters by so-and-so voters assures the NPP of 500,000 votes, which could only have happened by manipulation of the votes registered in the Asante region. For example, where did the 81,983 people come from between 2004 and 2006 in the District Jabin? What new industries have been established there to attract these numbers of people aged 18 years and above? You focus on these issues. Interrogate them. They turn out to be authentic, fair. We do something. If they are false, we throw it into the dustbin of history.
So the way,
but don't inflame ethnic passions.
Would you say that?
Up.
Would you say that the way, for example, Fifi Kwete tackled it, would be the fair way to go? He said that the NPP should not look at Ketu South because Ketu South, for example, is just a drop in the ocean, and he says it's just a drop in the ocean because those in the Ashanti region are worse.
It reinforces
and he says
the need for
Kwabre West, and many constituencies where the MPP won had a voter population as high as 50%. So how dare the MPP talk about Ketu South?
He's talking selectivity. That's the language he's speaking. But he's bringing evidence, quote unquote, on board that reinforces the need for us to look at the register again. So I don't get a point. What he's doing, or what others are doing with this so-called selectivity, and bringing evidence to show that there's selectivity, it's only reinforcing the need for us to take a look at the register. They are helping the cause of those calling for a new register. Paradoxical.
The NDC has not said there's no need to have a real look at the register.
No, but if it's so massive, because you see, here there is multiplication of that virus, the effect of it. If it's so massive, then you are pushing everybody in the direction of an entirely new register. I haven't said that's my choice.
Interesting.
I'm waiting for evidence to be brought to bear to tell us that indeed this is the option we are adopting. I don't have a choice now. I'll be honest with you.
Kofi, what you hear a lot since Barima put these figures out is that let's not be blinded or forget that the Volta region, the part that he refers to, and the other border towns that he refers to, these are citizens who are Ghanaians and also have, you know, affiliations in those other countries, particularly in Togo. So these may be dual nationals. So what's wrong with it?
Well, I thank you for the opportunity. Before I deal directly with the question and what the MPP has put forward,
right?
I think a lot of people are trying to hear from the PPP what we think about all this and where we stand. Probably because of the credible voice we have in the political space. And I think that where we stand is that we can't discuss this matter outside a complete or comprehensive electoral reforms. And you have been a champion of maybe an institution that is credible, a system that is foolproof and so on. All of us agree that there is a need to have a system of electing our president that can pass the integrity test. Listening to everybody else, we agree that there's a problem with the way we elect our president and our members of parliament and so on. Now, we had an opportunity at the Supreme Court when an election petition was presented. And anytime I watch this show and that issue come up, you have been advocating and even presenting the recommendations for electoral reform by the Supreme Court judges. I think from where we sit in the PPP, those recommendations are not exciting us. They are not far-reaching enough. So, and the point we make strongly is that none of them will change anything fundamentally as far as the election of our president is concerned. It will not prevent minors from going to the register. It will not prevent deliberate mistakes on the part of electoral officers. It will not prevent the difficulty with which the Electoral Commission manages the process of electing our president. So we shouldn't take refuge in this Supreme Court recommendation and make it appear that those ones are exhaustive enough as far as election reforms are concerned. Now, what do we mean when we say that we want total electoral reforms? Yesterday, we were happy to hear the EC chair announce that they're going to crack the whip and enforce the political parties law. You can't have a political system where the people who seek to govern cannot even put together a national organization called a political party. And yet, they show up in election year wanting to be given the opportunity to govern the Republic of Ghana. So I think it's a right step that we have taken. And there are so many things we need to take into consideration. Just before voting, election, it's not about voting day and so on. So we want the pre-election issues to be addressed, the abuse of incumbency and so on and so forth. And we have been at the forefront of this reform. Coming back to elections and thereafter, the voting. No, let's see, what is it that we are talking of? A system that can pass the integrity test, of course, and where you can even verify. So a very simple system of voter identification, secure voting, and proper tallying. All this discussion, if at the end of the day we have a register that is credible, we can discuss how we get to that point. And the other issues,
so you're saying that for
addressed.
you, the starting point is the register?
No, it's an understanding and appreciation or acceptance that everything has to be corrected from the beginning to the end.
And the correction should start with a new register. Is that where you stand?
No, the discussion has to be we want to do everything afresh or new. This system has to be completely overhauled. In doing so, you may have to touch the register.
What's your difficulty in answering in the affirmative with a simple yes or no? New register, because we have heard that minority parties that support this include the PPP. The CPP has been very unequivocal in saying, yes, we need a new register.
No, our position is simple. If it's not Dr. Baumia who is the first person to talk about the register, Dr. Afarijan, I didn't read his comment in the newspaper. I didn't watch him on television. We were face to face in public functions, and he's complaining. He put out his frustration as to how to deal with the minors in the register. And listening to Benefsin and everybody else, he's accusing the political parties as the people who engineer and put these minors in the register. So everybody would admit that there is something fundamentally wrong with the register. And you don't have to hurry to dismiss.
And the reference to Dr. Farijan, I read this last week. Let me just repeat the key points there. On the 15th of September 2008, this is what he had to say. If our population is indeed 22 million, then perhaps 13 million people on our register would be statistically unacceptable by world standards. If that is the case, then it may mean that there is something wrong with our register. Let me say that at the end of the day, the register is as good as the stakeholders are prepared to accept. If they think there is nothing wrong with the register, that is fine. If they think there is something wrong with the register, they bars the people. They sent the children. They invited the foreigners to come and participate in this. If they think that is okay, what else could we use? We have to use a register. That is the register that we will use.
You see, sometimes some of these comments are interesting, and you see, people may want to be tempted to do wrong things. And yes, passing the buck. The EC has always behaved, and that's one problem we have with them, that you should have had an agent. It's not by force. You say the political party may. So the job that Electoral Commission...
do I hear you say that it is right for you, the parties, to bust the minors and court the foreigners to go and register,
No, I didn't say
that it is the job of the EC to police that process and to avoid it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's whose job is it
It's
to
a
register
collective,
people?
collaborative work.
Yeah, but if some people decide not to obey the rule and play by the regulation, you don't just give up and raise your hands in the air and say because NDC or MPP bars people,
you do the first thing first. You do the right thing first.
Yes. So on this particular submission by the MPP, I think that they raised issues to do with the fact that people might have gotten onto the register using the NHIE card, which has now been outlawed. Is there a way to identify from the Electoral Commission how many of the people who registered in 2012 used NHIE card? Because when we approached them to do the registration, they took the type of ID you had submitted before your information was captured into the system. So that can be the first point for us to know even the number. And if it's so huge that it destabilizes...
in the end, the PPP wants a new register.
You see, our point is this. We don't support a new register as a standalone thing. Because why? What are you changing it for? Yes, because at the end of the day, we are worried about a number of processes, including accepting that as we sit here, the voters register is not credible if you have one person who is not supposed to be on the register on it. So we can't run away.
We're looking for a perfect system, that's it.
But a system, not necessarily perfect, but that is our wish.
Okay.
But a process of verifying, so that if there are mistakes. Now everybody is throwing his hands in the air, and we are just juggling with statistics here and there.
Gabby, finally, can I get you on that, on the dual citizenship issue? The sort of the biggest answer that you are getting is that the Voltarians that are being referred to, there are some of them who are both Ghanaians, and they are also, Togolese.
I think these questions can be easily answered, and they can be easily answered by, first of all, not looking at it from an ethnocentric point of view. You know, Kweku Bako and I were in this same Newsfile studio in 2008 when the NDC raised issues about the Ashanti Region Register. They called into the program, and the rest of it, we had an NDC person in the studio. And you know, what was interesting, I think that is the difference between the MPP and the NDC. The NPP decided to focus on the processes because they had mentioned something about CD-ROM. Nowhere did any of us say that Professor Mills or the NDC were targeting Ashantis because they don't like Ashantis. You know, so why? And you know, to me, it is sad for a ruling party and for the whole general secretary of the ruling party to want to play the ethnicity card in such a way. It's like Kweku said, it's very dangerous. But it appears that, you know, when you have nothing left, when you are not ruling the country well, you have nothing left.
No, I thought you were going to give me that simple answer to those questions. I'm giving you the simple answer, about the duality of their nationalities.
I'm coming. It's a complex issue. You see, when you allow, and these are the figures that are interesting, when you allow non-Ghanaians, you go sometimes even across the border, we have videos of where these national health insurance card registrations were done. So when you allow that to happen for a political advantage, you are hurting the people of the voter because even you are putting pressure on their health facilities in that region.
Did I hear you say you have videos which show, which are evidence of crime that were being committed?
I've seen videos, and I will get there. I'm telling you, look, it's
no, because it's simple. It's a simple process. He who alleges must prove.
I'm coming. I've seen videos where registration was supposed. They take registration machines to another country.
Wow.
And I'm sure you'll see them in the course of the month, if you like. You know, and these things happen. And when you look at it, what you see is that the EC with their STLs and the ICT departments have all been part of this process. Let me remind you of something. In July 2012, the chairman of the Electoral Commission came to Parliament. And this is the point he made. He said that they had captured 12.6 million voters and an additional 1 million, which would take it to 13.628 million. And that additional 1 million, they have invalid codes. Now, nobody understood, and it wasn't explained to Ghanaians how they came about that invalid code. It was never explained. So before we realized, this register had shot up to what? 14.3 million. So when you look at it, it appears clearly that there's been a systematic abuse of the register to favor something, whether a political party or whatever. But clearly, the EC's integrity is at stake. And when you look at it, let me also shift it a little bit.
We need to
move on. But let me shift. Okay, with Benefsin made a point about Dome and Pong. Dome, when you look at it from percentages, not numbers, Benefsin, because there are more people in Dome. It comes to 21%, and Pong is 58%. So that's the difference. Don't just use numbers arbitrarily.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And this one from Gideon, he's sending this from, Johannesburg in South Africa, says, can it be that some prominent individuals and groups in Ghana openly condemn the NDC for playing tribal cards on the NPP's concern on the voters' roll? That's what you mean. I am sure the same prominent individuals and organizations will come out to call for truce if the NPP begins to descend into the gutters and behave cheaply like the NDC has just done through Esiedu Nketia. Thank you for your message.
What we are saying is that Ontarians actually love the NPP more than the NDC would want to admit.
I hear. I hear.
Absolutely. I mean, if you keep distorting their votes.
Martin Luther in Laboni says, it's high time we did intelligence and intellectual discourse in our body politics. EC does not need any further evidence before its consideration for a new voters register. Until NPP's recent revelation on evil and devilish developments on the voters register, where other nationals decided for us who became a president in Ghana, the Supreme Court had said to that effect, the register is not credible and needs to be changed. Several institutions and other civil society have also said so, but my worry is the NDC, the PRO of the EC. Well, looking at the Supreme Court judgments directly, as far as the recommendations are concerned, there was no recommendation to change the register. The thing is that you have to take a time yourself and read beyond what they have said and make your own interpretation to suggest that maybe a change of the register might be necessary. I'm taking a break here. We'll be right back. Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show, brought to you by Bank of Africa, MTN, Sasso Spray, Star Assurance, Lipton Tea, and Yum Vita. And Kofi, I give you a minute's wrap up on the issue of the voters register.
Yes, the point I want to make quickly is that when we speak, we want to put some solutions on the table.
Right.
And what I wanted to say is that we had an opportunity in 2006 to fix this problem of who is a Ghanaian, who is a minor, where you come from, and so on and so forth. If we had implemented our own law, today we will not have all this discussion.
What law are you talking about?
The National Identification System. And it is 10 years. If you look back, what are we doing to ourselves? So we need to be careful the laws we pass. And
but you're saying that they may not have any need for a voters register? Or
yes, because if all of us had been registered, I wrote my name on the national ID in 2008. So by 2012, that's the card I would have presented. So today, you can't argue whether I'm minor, I've now reached 18, and so on and so forth. The information will be there.
Okay.
And final point is that this tribal comment by Mr. Esiedu Nketia is so unfortunate. We can't continue to do this to ourselves. If you want a campaign message, be crafty and find a new one. Look, the people in the Volta region are united for development, and the chiefs mean business.
But you politicians know how to take advantage using the tribal card and religion.
And so on. With this Alavanya and Konya and so on, all problems that they have, we need a government that is able to resolve these matters for them.
Well, and not I can assure you that this will be a campaign message going into 2016, so it's not stopping any time now. Kwaku, just a minute. Any other issues that you need to point out clearly on the voters register matter? And I was putting to Gabi about the dual citizenship matter that is come up. They are saying that, look, if you have identified 76,000 or so, they are Ghanaians and they are also Togolese, and the law allows dual citizens to vote anyway.
Did Barima talk of dual citizenship?
Because
was it an issue or is an implied matter?
What they are saying is that
who raised that issue?
He didn't pay attention to that. Other than that, he wouldn't have raised the issue.
So the NDC have identified the 70,000.
Yes, they brought in the dual citizenship matter. I'm looking at eligibility. Who are they? What are they? Are they eligible to vote in Ghanaian elections? That would be subjected to test. But I'm telling you that the most fundamental is how they got onto the register.
Right.
If that issue turns out to be true, that is based on what Barima is telling us, I can tell you the whole thing has been compromised, fundamentally.
But the Togolese register we are using now is a 2015 one.
So what does that mean?
And we compiled ours in 20...
have we seen the earlier Togolese? No, have we seen the earlier registers?
Okay.
Can they be on it?
Let me just show you something. This is a Togolese register. It has dreadlocks.
Yes.
Yao Soglo Jokpe, 38. And within 2 years, this is before, good dreadlocks within 2 years. This is him in Ghana. Jokpe Yao Soglo, age 36. Okay, so which means this was done before this. But you can see it's the same person.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Interesting. Yes, so that's the defense. He's the same person. He has dual nationality. So what's your problem?
Yes, I see. And sometimes actually.
Okay.
Sometimes the age difference is about 8 years.
Yes.
When the registration is supposed to have been done within, what, 2, 3 years or 4 years?
Let's just wait. This thing, that's what the public discourse. You can continue because you can't stop it.
Clearly, what you see is that there's a fundamental problem. Yeah. You know, people conspire, organizations conspire, because if National Health Insurance Authority, you can find only 13,000 Ghanaians in Ashanti region, the biggest region, who deserve to register for free. And you get to BA, you can find over what, 180,000. But in Volta region, over 200,000. In Ashanti region, you find less than 20,000. We have to ask ourselves. And at the same time, these people are registered. And you know, I don't trust even the EC.
Do they intend to prevent
I don't even trust the EC.
That one.
Come and tell us.
Don't say how
many people
you should be interested.
On national insurance.
And Joseph Ketia says that one, the new register is not the way to prevent it.
Because they are 4 years.
So we can do the NIA now, give everybody 3 months to get a Ghana card and use it to compile a new one.
Okay.
Otherwise,
look, the integrity of the
things you are complaining about cannot be prevented.
After the 2012 registration, just one minute. Let me make this point. After 2012 registration, they told us that they found a little less than 9,000 double registration. Codeo even came out, I believe, on the 17th of May to ask the EC what it was going to do about those who were caught, because the law says that you should deal with them. Okay? Now, can you imagine that after all these years, last year, the EC came to revise those figures to 66,000, 67,000.
Okay, Gabi.
And then after the limited registration, it went up to 72,000.
Gabi,
what does that tell you?
My final question to you.
Real deduplication was not
my
done.
final question to you, and quick, just the way you did it with Justice.
Yeah.
The Justice VCRAC crap, you know him.
Of course.
I mean, one of our first electoral commissioners, right? Absolutely. He says the way to go is not a new register. Yeah. Johnson Ketia says, you know what the provisions in CI, is it 72 or 75? Yeah. That clearly there's a way to be able to remove minors, and that process has been going on at the EC. So let's stick to some of these, rather than change the register.
Look, let's not forget the Abu Ramadan case as well.
Yes.
Okay? All right? In court, they made the case about millions or whatever Ghanaians.
And the court said, going forward, we will not use NHIA card. But it should not affect them, those who had already used it.
No, let me tell you. But you see, look. The court decision does not have a retroactive effect in terms of nullifying you using that register to vote. So your vote in 2012 will not be affected. But it doesn't mean if your source of identifying your eligibility is questionable going into a future election, that shouldn't be cured.
If you if you want to do a new register now, they will bring the voters' ID they have, because that's one of the ways they can identify themselves.
They don't have to. We are behaving as if we can't, as a country, take a decision that your 2012 register, if you are bringing your 2012 voter ID, it must come with something else, or it must be established that you didn't secure that, or you didn't procure that through a national health insurance card. Those things can be done, unless, of course, we don't trust the ICT department or the EC that they can go in.
Is it not possible?
And come back
is it not possible also to
the
identify these people and clean them of the register without going through a new process?
So ask yourself: it's almost a year since that decision. Which steps has the EC taken to purge them of that,
but again,
and give them another opportunity?
But again, you are excited by the approach the EC has taken. It says it is giving all political parties a deadline of is it September 22nd, by which time all of you should submit whatever you want. MPP has already submitted, and then there will be meetings to consider all the proposals, and then a decision will be taken. That is fine, isn't it?
Look, the jury is still out there on Charlotte Osei's EC, and that's what she has to. No, I'm coming. That's why. Absolutely, that's the point I'm making. The jury is still out there. So at the end of, because you remember, the EC came out categorically to say that there's nothing wrong with the register, and then the next day they came out with another statement turning around to say that, well, they will consider. So I hope and pray that it is not just to string people along.
Okay.
And I hope that they are serious about this, because it's about the stability.
All right. Thank you very much, Gabi.
The integrity of our democracy.
Thank you very much, Gabi. And like you just said, maybe we should just listen to what the EC boss herself has been saying. She says they will consider them, and then subsequently she has said that we are giving you up to the 22nd of September to bring all your ideas on board, and that we'll consider all together. There are some who say she's being very tactical and being very wise about the way she's going about it, and ought to be applauded in that regard. Now,
that's also premature.
Okay.
No, not exactly.
Right.
No, really.
I mean, what she did is
like mine wasn't premature. This is also premature.
Yes.
Thank you.
We should be reading the women activists who are applauding her for that.
I think so.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The jury is still out there.
Right. Okay.
And,
now let's listen to this very briefly. Let's listen to Professor Hoy on his point that electing district assembly and mayors, electing them will be disaster, and so we should not support that.
If we were to elect DCs today, I'm sure the MPP will not get any, the MPC will not get any, or they get about 3 DCs in the Ashanti region, and they take the whole of Volta region. If they had been elected in President Kufuor's time, the reverse would have been the case. Since those DCs would like to unseat the government for their party to come to power, you will find out that it will be very, very difficult for a partisan government to implement its programs through hostile DCs.
Very close.
All right, you're welcome back. And even before I get to hear your brief comments on this, because we have run out of time, I'm hearing almost every one of you saying this argument is flawed. But not everybody thinks it is flawed. I'll start with you, Kweku. He says, let's abandon our craze for election of DCEs. Let's get out of it because it's not useful. The NCCE did a survey, and a survey of about 3,000 respondents. And out of the number, 68%, or almost 69% of them said they want their DCEs elected. Professor Kwame Nahoy was at that engagement, and he said, we should not be following this, it's not the best. And he was supported by Dr. Mahama Kalistos of the Local Government Institute.
Well, for a very long time, I was an advocate of electing DCs and all the MDDC, whatever.
Yes, I'm taking just a minute's comment from you.
Yes, but gradually I've become very cautious. I think within the present constitutional arrangements, it may be a very difficult thing to do. I know that part of is not entrenched. The one to do with the appointment of DC is not entrenched. If you look at the Constitutional Review Committee, they made some proposals. Government comes up with another compromise. I think we should take our time. I'm not too sure we are ready for that level of elections. That's my own attitude. I've grown.
Government's suggestion for the mayors particularly was that allow the president to nominate 5 people. 5 people, give them to the Public Services Commission. It will vet them for competence and present 3 for election.
Yes. I've grown conservative on that matter. I think we should hold our fire for a while, interrogate the issue, look into the future.
Gabi,
right now, I'm not sure.
Nana Addo has been advocating for making the DCE's position elective.
I think it's important because to me, what is wrong is the fact that the DC, who's in charge of a district, feels that he or she holds their office at the pleasure.
Will they be in charge of the district security
because there'll be a committee.
No, would the DCs be head of the district security committees?
But you see, the point you are making, there's a committee.
After the election.
So a committee, you have members. And to me, that's the idea.
Let's take
because
our
you
time.
See, look, it's not about, we could have taken our time with independence. So to me, I think that it is a necessary thing. It's part of moving away from the winner takes all thing. And also, it creates greater accountability. There's a serious accountability deficit, especially at the district level, where people live. And if they feel, a DC feels that the decision that he takes is not to the interest of the president or the party, but to the people who elected him, I think we'll have a different...
Let's take our time.
Okay. Interesting.
We have taken our time.
Yes, 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
I think the sabotage argument is deeply flawed. He mentioned voter regime going to be taken over by NDC, DCs, and so on. They've already taken the MPs already. So what's the point? Now, it may sound personal, but forgive me if that is what it is. We should also disregard a 1987 idea of decentralization. It's time for us to move on. We've been practicing it for 30 years. We need to change that.
The PPP is also for electing DCs.
And we have an opportunity to meet the president, and we have the feeling, and we're reliably informed that the president is for electing DCs. He doesn't have much time.
The president cannot be for electing DCs. The white paper issued on the CRC's proposal.
Well, I'm telling you that I'm reliably informed that
his position has changed. Yes. Thank you very much, Kweku Bako, also Kofi Asamoah Sian and Gabi Asare Ochiridako. All of you who joined us on phone, Justice George and also Ben Efsin, Suleiman Barima, as well as Haruna Idrisu. Unfortunately, we were not able to talk to Dr. Mahama Kalistos. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Newsfile was brought to you by Bank of Africa, a strong